Okay, I'm going to admit people now. Uh,
Welcome to the Compassionately Caring session with the Noble Living, Noble Caring, Noble Dying team. My name is Annie J.
And I'm Andrea Sherman.
With the support of encouragement and guidance of Lama Tuko Mikmar Sering, the Noble Living, Noble Caring, Noble Dying team is pleased to be offering these monthly Compassionately Caring sessions on a Sunday each month.
Noble Living, Noble Caring, Noble Dying is an initiative with an approach to living, caring, and dying. And it's based on the lived experience combined with dedicated Buddhist practice. It's part of the Samye Institute vision, as well as a program of Samye Hermitage, New York. Together, today, we're going to embark on the journey of caring as the bond is established, which is shared as it unfolds.
And we invite you to please visit our website for many resources to support your caregiving and you as a caregiver. If you have any inquiries, you can contact us on Noble Living, Noble Caring, Noble Dying team via this email or QR code. Our hope is that these monthly sessions provide a safe place of refuge for conversation, learning, connection, and sharing, supporting each other as we journey on the path of caring for others.
So, this is a place to revisit our experience and have some of the very difficult conversations around compassion, kindness, self awareness, vulnerability, loss, grief, and the many challenges we may encounter. In this community of care, we hope to share, support, and guide each other. It's a place to learn how to apply our Buddhist practice to daily life and to share how we walk in the world, providing tools and methods as well as an overview, a very important overview of how to care for ourselves while caring for others. So join us and experience the kindness and the love of being part of a shared, compassionately caring community.
With the collective gathered wisdom of those attending these sessions, we can support each other with compassion, love, kindness, and guidance and caring. This way, nobody feels isolated or alone, and in this way, we can build community.
So, Samye Hermitage New York offers this initiative, and also there are resources online via the Samye Institute and Samye Hermitage websites. So, please join us in a few opening prayers.
In the northwest of Odiana, in the heart of a lotus flower, you came renowned as a lotus born. With your supreme city wondrous, with your retinue of dakinis, following your footsteps, we pray. Come, inspire us with your blessings. Guru Pima Siddhi Samanta Bhadra, Vajrasattva, Garab Dorje, and Sri Singha, Padmakara, Vimalamitra, king and 25 disciples. So Zor, Nup Nang, the 100 Teratans and others, all the gurus of Kama and Terma, I pray to you. From the Dharmadhatu palace of Akanishta, the essence of the Buddhas of the three times, directly shows my mind as Dharmakaya. At the feet of the root guru, I pray. Light rays from my heart center invite the gurus, victors, and their heirs into the space before me, Vajrasamaya Dham. Namo. I and all beings, infinite as space, take refuge in the supreme sources of refuge, rousing bodhicitta and aspiration and application. I will accomplish the level of the Guru of Healers. Namo. I and all beings, infinite as space, take refuge in the supreme sources of refuge, rousing bodhicitta and aspiration and application. I will accomplish the level of the Guru of Healers. Namo. I and all beings, infinite as space, take refuge in the supreme sources of refuge, rousing bodhicitta and aspiration and application, and I will accomplish the level of the Guru of Healers. May I become at all times, both now and forever, a protector for those without protection, a guide for those who've lost their way, a ship for those with oceans to cross, a sanctuary for those in danger, a lamp for those in the dark, and a servant to all those in need. As long as living beings exist and suffering afflicts them, may I too abide to dispel the misery of the world. May I be a guard for those who need protection, a guide for those on the path, a boat, a raft, a bridge for those who wish to cross the flood. May I be a lamp in the darkness, a resting place for the weary, a healing medicine for all who are sick, a vase of plenty, a tree of miracles. And for the boundless multitudes of living beings, may I bring sustenance and awakening, enduring like the earth and sky, until all beings are freed from sorrow and all are awakened.
So, welcome everyone. We're delighted to see you all here today. And we'll be continuing our focus with Frank Osetowski's book, The Five Invitations. And it's an extraordinary book. We also recommend that you listen to him read it on Audible. It's really, you're shaking your head there. Yeah, it's really an extraordinary Audible experience. So both of those are available to you. Frank, oh, this is the book. Our wonderful colleague Michael helped us with this slide here. These are the five invitations. Don't wait. Welcome everything. Push away nothing. Bring your whole self to the experience. Find a place to rest in the middle of things and cultivate don't know mine. As
Should
many,
tell them who we are,
yes,
Andrea,
I'm going to.
first.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So, Frank also, just a word, and we'll take a deeper dive into who he is too, but he was the um, developer, the originator of the Zen hospice many years ago and was at the bedside of several, I think now more than 2,000 people. But today, I am Andrea Sherman, and I'm a gerontologist for many years at New York University. And I'm also trained as a contemplative end-of-life doula through the New York Zen Center for Contemplative Care. It was an extraordinary program. And currently, I'm also teaching a dance for Parkinson's class in Hastings, New York, and we're getting ready to do our first performances. And joining us is Annie J.
Annie J. I'm an ordained Buddhist nun in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition and a student of Khyentse Pacha Rinpoche and Lama Tukul Mikmar Sering. I also happen to be a clinical chaplain and pastoral counselor at Canada's preeminent pediatric institution, where I also teach chaplaincy and caregiving so that others can do this wonderful work at bedside. And we welcome you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Annie J. So we have a very rich program today as we take a deep dive into the work of Frank Osateski. So a little bit less meaning for those of you that weren't here. We talked about Frank's background and his starting the Zen hospice. And this book is really, it brings together his work of many, many, many years. And personally, I think it's one of the best books on death and dying. It's so rich. There's so much in it. He invites us actually to sit down and have a cup of coffee, a cup of tea with death, which I think it implies a certain intimacy with death, which is a good word to think about it. We become
Would like to just, oh, sorry, interject that it's not only a book about death and dying. I find that everything in that book really applies on living fully as well.
Thank you. Yes, it does. The two are joined, life and death, and they're kind of a package deal, the two of them together, because how we live is how we die. You know, I'm sure many of you have heard that expression before. But he talks about really, and this I think definitely relates to Pachak Rinpoche's teachings about the transformative power of death. Death is indeed transformative. And we will reflect about death, but how we live is really how we die. It comes to everyone. And this helps us, I think, become kinder and gentler with each other. This, we feel the precariousness and the preciousness of human life. And he says death is a good companion on the road to living well. And one of the themes that's in this section is dying without regret. So we'll join some of those themes together. Um, so he wrote these 5 invitations, which if we could have that slide again, Michael. He wrote those 5 invitations when he was on an airplane flying over Kansas City. And these are really, really excellent invitations. So we'll be starting this week and next month on the first one. So we'll do 2 months on each invitation. So this is our first one on Don't Wait. And I'd like to begin with a short meditation on death from, I think some of you also have seen Pachak Rinpoche's book, Awakening Dignity. It's also an excellent book, and there's also an excellent audio of this too, read by a Sangha member who's an actor, Yuri. So this is in the chapter on death, and Rinpoche says, it's really of value to contemplate death. This is a good meditation. And he says some people think that meditation only brings joy and peace and makes us feel good about ourselves, but actually meditation should open us to all of life, including old age, sickness, and death. And although it might be uncomfortable, there are many benefits to do it because we gain a deep appreciation of life. So assume a comfortable seated posture and take a few calming breaths and let your mind settle. And when you are calm and alert, loose and relaxed, we'll proceed with this first contemplation. During the process, hold your thoughts very lightly. And if they should become too heavy, or if you become over anxious or worked up, bring your mind back to a state of calmness and begin again. So the first contemplation is death is certain. First, contemplate the certainty of death. Everything born will eventually die. This is true of inanimate objects as well as animate beings. Even mountains erode over time, eventually ceasing to be. Contemplating in this manner gives us a broad view of impermanence. Then consider all the people and animals that have ever lived. What a vast number that is. How many of them are still alive? Only a small percentage. And those people will all be dead in a few generations. Think of famous, larger than life people, such as your favorite writers or artists or philosophers, kings and queens, and so forth. They all die. Even great religious leaders die. All the people that we know today will one day die. And finally, you too will die. Contemplate this as a way of generating a living experience and conviction that death is real. And slowly bring yourself back as we continue to explore the first invitation of don't wait. And just a few words about that. I think for me, this invitation, don't wait, really brings us into a conversation about impermanence, which we're going to take a dive into in a minute. But also, it brings us into a conversation of having no regrets, being able to fulfill the things that you want to fulfill that are important to you in your life now. Don't wait. Don't wait. You don't really know what tomorrow is going to bring. I think about this, that there's a sense of being and presence that comes with this invitation. Be present wherever you are without regret. Because we can learn a lot about living fully with this invitation. And when you become comfortable sitting with death, also, I think there's a poignancy and an intimacy and a sense of being with life. So don't wait. And Annie J is going to share a sense of impermanence that she has experienced with this don't wait.
Before I do that, I think we need to contemplate a little bit. And this is a question that I often carry with me as I care for those at bedside, especially if I know that death is imminent. Is I ask myself, what is the invitation that death brings? Because it invites us into a level of intimacy with our own being, as well as those that we're caring for. And this work is really a self-mirroring mystery. So, whenever we care for someone, we start to begin to identify maybe areas where we may be feeling vulnerable, where we may feel a depth of intimacy, where we may notice some discomfort. And that really points to us being able to see where we are in our path as human beings, and in terms of our development, in terms of grasping our whole being. And it can point to us places where we need work. and can point to us places that we may want to explore after we've had the caring experience, of places where, oh, I didn't know that disturbed me, or I didn't know I was vulnerable there. And what's that about? And why is that happening in this moment? But to not push yourself beyond what's comfortable, but to just be aware of what arises, and not to forget, once the, event has happened, that, oh, this was an area that really touched me. And, what's that story about? I was gathering some material for a class on Nundro, and I was looking through all sorts of examples of how to make impermanence more poignant for folks, because it's something as we're older becomes very real, but when you're working with younger people, it's not necessarily a place we want to go. And I came across a teaching of Dogo Kensei Rinpoche, who was a great master from Tibet. Many of us know him associated with Sechen Monastery in Nepal. And he was a great scholar, but he was a great, great bodhisattva and a wonderful, wonderful teacher. And he was sitting there kind of reflecting on his life. And he was about 72, and he sat there and he said, when I look back at my life and I look at, is there anything that still exists from when I was young? And I don't have a country. All of my peers have died. My teachers have died. The buildings that were there are gone. And if I go through my life and I go through, okay, this is, how things were when I was, 15 or 20, or how things were when I was 30, and how things were when I was 40, or how things were when I was 50. There is nothing that was the same as it was in those times. Everything, even the streets that I walk down, have changed. The politics have changed. The borders of countries have changed. What was considered true is now considered false. Even that has changed. What people's priorities are have changed. And so in this reflection, he really pointed up to what I call everything arises and everything falls away. And how do we become part of that stream, that way of walking in the world, of living with everything arises and everything falls away? In Buddhism, they teach that the suffering of the human condition is the suffering of change. And death is one of the only times that we allow ourselves to really admit this. But it's happening around us all of the time. Everything is arising, everything is falling away. Even if it's your favorite teacup, it's impermanent, right? Everything is arising and everything is falling away. And I think that's a wonderful meditation. And Andrea kind of gave us a framework with Patrick Rinpoche's book, but it's a really important part of our own personal development to be able to grasp impermanence. It really allows us to soften the rigidity of our being. They say that one of the great obscurations is habit. And the older we get, the more habitual we get. And so being able to actually step into this and embrace this awareness that everything arises and everything falls away is a very unique way to walk in the world. Andrea.
Thank you, NJ. So don't wait. It's such a fabulous few words. Don't wait. Every breath counts because nothing is permanent. And I think this ability to be with each moment, to embrace the truth that all things must end, and have sort of this sense of the preciousness of human life. For me, they go together, precious human life and don't wait. And Frank says, stop wasting your life. Don't wait, engage. This is a pathway to having no regrets, no regrets. And I think in other texts about death and dying, no regret is also a very big theme that we will come across. The mirror of mindfulness, that have no regrets, is a very big theme. So, and I think coupled with that is having a sense of gratitude. A sense of gratitude links to don't wait. What are we grateful for in our life right now? And being aware of that may make us more kinder and more compassionate. Um, because death is the elephant in the room, and we think that it's going to come later. Oh, it's not going to come today. But why wait until we're dying to be free of struggle? How about the law of impermanence, that every moment is born and every moment dies? And to be able to step as a dancer, we think about being able to step into alignment. How do we align ourselves with our present circumstances? How do we be here now, as Ram Dass says, be here now, because we know that birth will end in death. And when we embrace impermanence, really, a certain grace enters our lives, and we can feel deeply without clinging. We understand that impermanence is the life of all things, and hopefully we may learn to tolerate change better. We can perhaps become more appreciative and resilient. We are not our past, says Frank. We are becoming. We're becoming. We release grudges, we forgive, we free ourselves of resentment and regret. We let go of regret before we die. So don't wait, don't wait, don't wait. Everything we need is right in front of us. Impermanence is the doorway to possibility. And embracing it is where true freedom resides. Being. And we've talked about being before, but we return to this idea of being. To live means to die as a small being, moment after moment. And I'm sure some of you know that in some healthcare settings, when a new baby is born, when new life emerges, the Brahms lullaby or a similar wonderful piece of music is played. So let's take a moment and listen to what is often played piped into every room within a healthcare setting.
That lullaby really brings many memories of families that I have cared for that may be losing a little one. And I often get the question, why would God harm a little child? Why is this happening to my child? Why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to my family? And I will often say to them, I come from a tradition that has a reincarnation myth. And our perception of death and dying is a little bit different, and I do find it kinder. And then they say to me, well, tell me, what is that? Share that with me. I really want to know, and so I say, well, think of it, you are in between your lives. You're about to be born, and you have this moment of reflection where you're actually looking at your past deeds, what you've aspired to, and in that viewing, you see where you may have caused harm. You see where you may not have been the being you wanted to be in spirit on earth. And in that moment, you make a commitment. It's a spiritual commitment that you won't cause harm, but you often have an opportunity to make a decision about the purification of karma. And you may wish to take on a life that's a bit more difficult in order to purify this karma. And in that state, that frame of mind, of consciousness, you are going to pick a family. You are going to pick someone that you have intimate trust with, where you know that you can have this vulnerable life and trust them to be there for you, no matter what your suffering is. And you're going to be born to that family. And then we forget. And what happens is kind of magical, because the parent that is turning away, that is really focusing on their own victimhood, that is really struggling for answers, all of a sudden realizes that what they're witnessing in front of them is something very, very sacred, and that they really need to pay attention. And in that moment, all of a sudden, instead of turning away and running away from the grief, they turn towards, and every breath becomes imbued with preciousness. Every moment, every gesture of that child becomes a lesson in love. And I've seen situations where children will bring whole families together, families that have been fighting for years, are all at the bedside in love, because this being has reminded them of really what it's all about. So this idea of precious human life is so important, right? And there's nothing that brings a sense of preciousness more than when we really engage fully and are present for what's really happening in front of us. So recently I've started to share this story. I have kept this bundled for years, but I shared it last week with my Dharma Stream group. But there was a time in my life where I was told I was going to die. And at that time, I was seeing a very talented Tibetan herbalist who, really was someone who could kind of cure everything and kind of would see things that other doctors didn't see in the allopathic system. And when he told me that, he had nothing left and that he didn't know really why my immune system was crashing, and that maybe I should go to have an HIV test, that he was kind of bewildered. I knew I was really in trouble, right? And so I came home that day and I had a garden. I had a rose garden at that time. And I went and I sat in the garden, and it was that beautiful time of evening, of dusk. You know what I mean? That sense of smelling the dew on the air, the temperature being perfect, the sun being on your face, but not too hot. And I settled into a deep meditation. And in that meditation, I decided that I was going to surrender to death, that I was going to say goodbye to each aspect of my life, that I was really going to do this impermanence thing. And so I started sort of with my peripheral, the people at work, the peers at work, and I looked at each one of them and said goodbye and sort of took in the impact it would have on their lives, the impact of my not being there in the studio. At that time, I was making stained glass windows for churches. And then I went to my family and each of the members of my family, and I said goodbye. And I really sat with the impact it would have on each one of them, the grief it would have on them, the responsibilities I had within the family that would no longer be fulfilled, that others would have to take on. And then I went into my Sangha and started to say goodbye to my temple and my community. And all of a sudden, I found myself in another dimension. And in this dimension, I was not separate from anything. In this dimension, what I understood, what I lived, what I breathed, what I felt, what I knew in my bones, was that absolutely everything is made up of a fabric called love. That's the net. And I was the net at the same time as I was observing the net. And in that experience of being everything at the same time, I realized I was everyone's breath. I was all the trees. I was the grass. I was the sky. I was all being simultaneously. And this went on for quite a long time. And I'll never forget that feeling of absolute unconditional love permeating everything. And I don't just mean on earth, I mean throughout the entire universe. And then at a certain point, I realized I haven't said goodbye to my guru. And then when I went to say goodbye to my guru, I couldn't. And that's when I realized that I wasn't going to die. And I did recover. We don't know what that illness was, what that blip was. It was kind of mysterious. There was nothing that showed up on diagnostics. But to this day, I carry that experience with me. And I'd like to say that impermanence is the gateway to realization. We often talk about our ego being in the way, not being able to perceive what's right in front of us, always being in a position of objectifying. And it's in this real grasping of impermanence and the rarity of every moment and every experience and every relationship, and sort of really letting us understand that everything arises and everything falls away, that really opens up the doorway, the gateway to this absolute love. Andrea.
Yeah, thank you, NJ. So, I think it'd be good for like the next, until we meet again, to kind of have the mantra in our minds of don't wait. If you have a moment and you're in traffic and it's snarly, maybe you can hear yourself say, "Don't wait," because don't wait keeps our hearts open. And back to the Brahms lullaby for a minute. There's something, and Annie J described it very beautifully. There's something, even amidst despair, there's still beauty, and there's still hope, and there's still extraordinary expression. So don't wait. I think it also has something to do with keeping our hearts open and expressing our feelings along the way and not keeping them all bottled up. We want to step fully into life. We don't want to wait. So it's important not to get stuck in the hope for a better past or a better future, but to be present where we are. Um, you can choose to function from fear or from awareness.
I'd like to add a story here. Those of us that do spiritual care in the hospital, we often get a lot of referrals. We get them through the computer, and then the nurse will phone and the pager will be going off. And so we tend to have a kind of a list of like, this is what I have to do today. Maybe it's a patient that we saw yesterday that we have to follow up on. And when we do this type of work of being present at the bedside, it brings a keenness of awareness of what's happening in the moment right in front of us. That everything arises and everything falls away becomes very much the way we walk in the world. And a typical example of this is, you'll be leaving the office and you're planning to go to a ward to visit a particular patient, and then all of a sudden there's a family that asks you for directions. And that's actually the family you're supposed to care for. And so this is the way life works, right? With these spontaneous arisings of these, opportunities to engage that we often dismiss because we're busy doing stuff, right? We've got our plan and we're going to, march through and do our plan. And in cases like that, often, that family is someone that I'll spend several hours with. Maybe they just ask for directions, but there's a whole unfolding that happens that I would have missed if I had just followed my list. Andrea.
Um, Suzuki Roshi, one of my favorite writers and teachers, said that what we call I is just a swinging door which moves when we inhale and when we exhale. Impermanence. And in many meditation halls, there's a large wooden block before you enter into the hall. And on the block, this is what it says: Be aware of the great matter of birth and death. Life passes swiftly. Wake up, wake up. Do not waste this life. And the words disappear, and the block becomes the teaching. And this seems to
Mm,
be kind of a vulnerability, the sense of, and Frank does talk a lot about vulnerability as something that he cultivates, as something that he has learned, the sense of um, moment after moment. Suzuki Roshi says, to live means to die as a small being, moment after moment. And embracing change and transformation, I think, is really, really key. And what we'd like to ask you to do for our next gathering is to bring a don't wait story with you. Some experience that you're having in the present or that you had before around impermanence and not waiting. So, but I want to take a moment just to ask if anyone had a particular reaction to hearing the Brahms lullaby and um, what you felt or um, its impact on you, if anyone wants to share that. Do I see any hands here?
Okay.
Arlene, go.
Sure, I'll share. I'm doing a don't wait because I really don't want to speak, but I'm gonna speak. No, this is a don't wait for me. Okay. What I didn't know that that was played for babies. So I just kind of thought of all the babies being born and connected with them and like just wishing them the best, and just may they find whatever teacher or just it opened me up to it opened my heart to all the babies. So it was beautiful because at first I was like, okay, sit here, listen, all right, listen. And then I was very much I-centered, me, what's my reaction, blah, blah, blah. And then when I just opened up to other, in this case, babies, my heart just opened and I relaxed.
Ah, beautiful.
Thank you.
Kevin, did you have a comment here?
Well, yeah, I was very relaxed, and I was imagining the joy in the hospital when people heard that, and how it spread throughout and helped dissipate all the suffering that was going on. And then I thought music can be such a tool. But then I thought about this video I saw of kids dancing to this really raucous. I mean, they were like animals, you know? And I just thought of the contrast, how, and I'm trying not to judge, I'm just trying to notice how music can be, a stimulating, guttural, primal, not necessarily good thing. And then it can also be wonderful. And, it's how we use these things that are good and bad. I was also thinking of the documentary of the Blue Zones, where people live to be, 100 years old or something. Most of the people do. And one of the things they did was they periodically they had the dances that the whole community got together, and they partied all night. But it was a very, the local musicians and just playing and having a good time and stuff like that, and how, joyful it can be at the same time. So just a couple of things that went through my mind, I'll share with you.
Mm. I just feel like, I guess the thing is preciousness. Like what's coming in is so delicate and so fragile. And that lullaby really captures the preciousness and the delicacy of, of, of this life. And to just touch base with that, just makes as Arlene said, it just makes your heart expand in your.
Yes. So next meeting, bring your don't wait stories with you. Think about that a little bit during our time together. And I think now we'll join in the dedication of merit for our practice today.
Om Bendasattva Samaya Manipalaya Bendasattva Tenipa Tita Drita Mibawa Sutaya Mibawa Supahaya Mibawa Anurakta Mibawa Sarasedi Miprayata Sarakarma Sitame Sitam Triyankurahun Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Sarva Tathagata Benzamami Minza Benzi Bawa Maha Samaya Sato Buddha of the Three Times, Pura Rinpoche, Lord of all cities, great bliss, dispeller of all obstacles, wrathful tamer of Mara, I supplicate you, bestow your blessings, pacify the outer, inner, and secret obstacles, and spontaneously fulfill all wishes. What little virtue I have gathered through my homage, through offering, confession, and rejoicing, through exhortation and prayer, I dedicate it all to the enlightenment of all beings. Through this merit may all attain omniscience and conquer the enemy of wrong action. May all be freed from samsara's ocean and its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Just as the Bodhisattva Manjushri attained omniscience, and Samantabhadra too, all these merits now I dedicate to training and following in their footsteps. Just as all the victorious Buddhas of past, present, and future praise dedication as supreme, so now I dedicate all these virtues of virtue so that all beings may perfect good action. Om Swasti. By the power of the gurus and deities of immortality, may the life of this noble and supreme emanation, fearless and renowned guide, who upholds the Buddha's teachings of sutra and mantra, be unchanging and steadfast, and may his wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. If you would like to make an offering, to make an auspicious connection, and to support the initiatives of Sami Institute and the Noble Living, Noble Caring, Noble Dying team, please scan the barcode shown on your screen or contact us via email. And if you would like to offer more extensive prayers for loved ones offered by the monks and nuns of our lineage, you can request this by making a request and offering. There are 3 streams in which to request these prayers, either through a puja, specifically request a medicine Buddha healing session, or requesting bardo prayers for the deceased.
For all the activities of Kapyan Pachak Rinpoche, please visit the Samye Institute. And you can see the barcode there. There's also a very extensive 1 to 6 week in-person summer immersion program that starts June 15th and it runs, this is in Cooperstown, New York. It runs until July
Mhm.
24th and it's called the Buddhist Arts and Sciences 2026. Lama Tukul Migmor Suring, Pachak Rinpoche, and the Noble Living, Noble Caring Dying team will be there. And EJ and I will be there the week of, I think, July the 20th. And this is being offered under the direction of Peter Woods at the Samye Hermitage, New York, this summer. So you can visit the website, enroll for a week or for the full program in this wonderful offering, and join us. We hope that you'll visit and see us there. So stay tuned for our next Compassionately Caring session, which is scheduled now for Sunday, June the 7th at 8 a.m., and we'll send out advance notification and confirmation via the Samye emails. Also, Medicine Buddha Day follows. It falls on the 8th day of the lunar month. And next month, Medicine Buddha Day will be on Tuesday, May the 24th at 8 a.m. And we'll send out notification for that. So please register, sign up, join us, and become a patron of Samye Institute.
So thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you find these sessions beneficial. Thank you again for making the time, and we look forward to being with you again. And we look forward to hearing your Don't Wait stories next week.
And special thanks to Michael Holmes, our creative partner, our masterful technological wizard. And thank you to all of you for joining us today. And we hope to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right.
Thank
Bye,
Goodbye.
you.
Michael.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.